Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kafaya. I'm a community learning specialist at DoSpace, and I will be facilitating today's session of DoSpace Digital After School Code It. How's everyone doing today? And are you guys excited about Thanksgiving and all the food that you're going to eat? Because I am. Okay. We kind of have a lot to do today, so without further ado, I'm going to dive right into it. So just a quick recap of all we have done for the past 4 weeks, just everything we've done in the world of Kano coding. We've worked with loops, variables, events, and logic, and I would like you guys to try to refresh or remember and grab onto every little information that you can remember from these past 4 lessons, because for today's class or for today's session, we're going to be building a clicker game on the Kano website, of course, and just as always, there would be steps that would help guide us through creating the game. But this game, what I like about it is that it would incorporate everything that we learned so far. So all the concepts of logic, loops, variables, and everything is going to go into our activity for today. So for those of us that have accounts and would like to work along with me, I'm going to put the link to the website right here, just so that you can easily access it and go to your account. And for anyone else that just wants to watch me do me, that's totally okay too. Okay, so this is an overview of what we should expect to get through today. And as you can see, it's quite a lot, but there would be intervals where we watch videos of what the activity is before we go on to creating our own. So it's quite a few steps, but I'm sure we'll have some fun as we work through it. So let's get started with creating the game. So this is me going into my Kano Code account and everything here. I'm going to go to the list of challenges so you guys can easily navigate to the challenge that we're doing today. And I'm going to just find my way down through variables, loops, events, logic. And right here, as you can see, the next step is to do the clicker game. So let's get started. So the first thing to do is to watch like an introductory video of what the clicker game actually entails and what to expect from the first step of the challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video so that we can all watch. Give me a second while I make that visible.
Bit differently. This time we're going to take all of the skills that you've learned so far and put them together to make one big thing. And what we're going to be making is a clicker game. A clicker game is a kind of game where the player earns points just by clicking on the game. Hey there. The more you click, so points in this challenge pack, we're going to be doing also have ways for the player to be able to spend points on different upgrades and things, so the game gets easier and they can score more points. So the clicker game that we're going to be making is themed as a bubble tea bar. So when the player clicks on the screen, they'll sell a bubble tea and gain more money or points. And then they can spend their money to make better bubble tea. So these challenges are going to use all of the skills you've learned so far in events, variables, loops, and logic. It's got them all.
Okay, let's try that again.
differently. This time we're going to take all of the skills that you've learned so far and put them together to make one big thing. And what we're going to be making is a clicker game. It earns points just by clicking on the game. The more you click, the more points you score. Clicker games also have ways for the player to be able to spend points on different upgrades and things, so the game gets easier and they can score more points. So the clicker game that we're going to be making is themed as a bubble tea bar. So when the player clicks on the screen, they'll sell a bubble tea and gain more money or points. And then they can spend their money to make better bubble tea. So these challenges are going to use all of the skills you've learned so far in events, variables, loops, and logic. It's got them all. So the way that this works is you have to go through the challenges in order, and each one will help you build a tiny little bit of your game. So after you've done a few of the tutorials, I'll be back in another video and we can go through what you've learned so far.
Okay, awesome. So now we're going to go ahead and start the challenges, just like she said, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to find my way back to the list, and here, we're going to go with the first one, which is to draw the bubble tea. Let me just turn this off. Awesome. So to start, you're going to draw the bubble tea. I like that we get to do everything by ourselves from scratch. So now I'm setting my background color, and I'm going to change that to blue. Next, I'm going to choose the fill color, which I'm going to choose this color for. Yeah, that's close enough. Next, we're going to, of course, draw. So my X position is going to be 270. And my Y position should be 350. Next, I'm going back into my draw tray, and of course, it's more drawing. And right here is 230. Awesome. So we have what looks like the cup itself where all the tea goes. So my next step is to do the upper part of my cup, it looks like. Make that a bit darker. That's as dark as it gets. Cool. Next, I'm going back into my draw tray, and I'm going to just make it look more realistic. And this is going to be 0. More from my draw tray. This is me doing a lot of drawing. Just bear with me. And my height is going to be -200. Cool. And that's my straw. That's actually cool. Next, I'm going back into my draw tray. So I'm going to change this from black to gray. And now the lead should be see-through, so we can add a transparency block for that. So we're going into our draw tray to select the transparency block, and I'm changing this from 100 to 50, just following the instructions that you see on the screen. I don't need that. And now we're doing more drawing. So my X is going to be -10, and my Y position is going to be 0. Again, we're still drawing, so I'm going back into my draw tray, And I'm going to draw my arc to change the size from 5 to 10. Oh, 110. Next, I'm changing 0 to 1. And I'm changing the third one right here to 0. And now it's time to set my transparency. So using the transparency block, okay, this looks somewhat like a boba cup, like a boba tea cup. Very cool. So I guess we're done with the first step, and now we're going to move on to our next challenge. The next step would be to add the sticker, and as you can see, everything that we did from the first challenge is still right here, because the fun thing about today's game is that the challenge builds off of the previous step. So, time to make the clicker element of the game. So to make sure your code doesn't get too long, we're going to add another when the app starts block to keep your code organized. That's very cool. I'm all for organization, so that works for me. So here, that goes right below this. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Next, first, you're going to set some variables to store how much the tea costs and how much money you've earned using the variables tray. And if you guys remember anything from our variables lesson, is that you have to set your variable. So this variable is going to store how much each bubble tea costs. Change item to cost. So I'm changing item right here to cost, just like it says. And now set your variable to a number. Open the math tray. So I'm going into my math tray and I'm setting my variable to 0 first. And I'm going to go ahead and change that from 0 to 0.5. Cool. Back to my variable tray, I'm going to set my money. And back, you're going to be starting out with no money. That sucks. I like money. So set the variable to 0 to open the math tray. I'm going to. Why did I forget how to read in that second? Cool. Add a text part so you can show how much each bubble tea costs on the canvas. So to do that, we're going to add parts and select the text and go into the text tray and connect that to the rest of our block. And then I'm changing this for the X position because right now it's in the top right corner, top left corner, and we don't need that. We want it to be more visible. So I'm going to change it to 140 and my Y position is going to be 500. So back into my text tray, I'm going to change my text color to yellow just so it's visible enough for everyone to see. And back to adding parts, I'm going to add another part, another text, and connect it to the rest of the blocks and change the X position from 0 to 100. And my Y position is going to be 550 this time, so it's just right below the previous text. So back to my text tray, I'm going to choose a text color for the second text, and we're going to make that white. Cool. So now I'm going back into my control tray to select my loop. So every 1 millisecond, I want have your text show how much the tea costs when open the first text tray. So I'm opening my first text tray and I'm going to change my text value. Okay. Now you get a special block that joins two pieces of text together. Open the variables tray. So I'm going into my variables tray and I'm going to select this very nice looking block. Back into my variable tray, I'm going to select the comment block, and I'm going to change that, or I'm going to write in there that my bubble tea and I'm going to give it a dollar amount. Cool. So type bubble tea into the space here. Make sure you hit next when you're finished typing. So I'm going to hit next. And now it says set the second part of this text to the variable that stores the price of the tea. Open the variable tray, and I'm going to select the item block and change this to cost. Great. Now your canvas is showing how much it costs for one bubble tea. Do the same for how much money you have. Open the okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the text to tray. And now I'm going back into my variable tray, and I'm going to connect this pretty block and go back into my variable tray to collect the comment block. Next, I'm going to change this to money. So this is the container that would help us collect how much money that we have. And I'm just going to give it a money value. Okay, very cool. And now we have our bubble tea set, the price is set, and now our money is also set. And back to my variable tray, I'm going to select the item block, and I'm going to change the item to money. Cool. Now we're going to add a bit that makes our money go up as we click the mouse. So now I'm going to add a new part, which is the mouse part. And back inside of my mouse tray, I'm going to select this block, and it goes right here. As you can see, our code is getting longer and longer. So now in my math tray, I'm going to select this nice looking block right here and connect it to this block, and I'm going to change it from item to money. And back to my variable tray, I'm going to select the item block again and change that to cost. Cool. Add the finishing touch by playing a sound when you click. Add a speaker part using the add parts button right here, like so. Next, I'm going to go into my speaker tray and select the block that helps my speaker play some music, and I'm going to change the sound that it makes to twip. Interesting. Next, we're going to go add a clicker. Cool. Click on the canvas. Every time you click, the money variable would go up by the cost of the tea. Next, you're going to add a feature that would let you buy upgrades. So this is, see, let me make that bigger. Every time that I click on my canvas, I make more money. That's awesome. How much do we want? Let's get, let's get up to $20, but here we are. Okay, so let's go back and continue with the challenge. So the next challenge is to add the upgrade button. In this step, we're going to add a button that allows the player upgrade their bubble tea when they have enough money, which would make their drink more expensive and make them even more money. Nice. So I'm going to start by clicking on the next button. And inside of my app tray, I'm going to start a new group. And it says add a variable to store how much it costs to buy an upgrade. It needs to be a variable because this number is going to change. Because each time a player buys it, it should be more expensive. Oh, it should get more expensive. So let's start by opening up our variables tray and selecting this block that says set item to, and we're going to change item to upgrade cost. Now I'm going back into my math tray and I'm going to set that to 0. Okay, change the number to 20 so that the player will need $20 to buy the upgrade. So I'm going to change that to 20. And next, I'm going to add a button for the upgrade using the add buttons part. So right here, I'm adding the add buttons part. And now I'm moving the button to the side of the canvas. And to do that, I'm opening my button tray where I would get the different positions, the X and Y position. So my X position is going to be 620 and my Y position is 400. Okay. The cost of the upgrade is going to change over time. So you need to put the text. It shows in a loop. Open the control tray. We're going to grab our lovely friend, the loop, and change it from seconds to milliseconds. And now change what the button says by opening the button tray. And here I am. And now I'm going to go back to my variables tray and create text width. Okay, back to my variables tray, I'm going to give myself the option to write the comment. And in here, I'm going to type in T upgrade. And of course, give it a dollar amount. Cool. Next, add the upgrade cost variable you made so it displays the price. Open the variables tray. In my variables tray, I'm going to select this block and change it to upgrade cost. And now you're going to add an if statement in our logic tray that makes the button light up if the player has enough money to buy the upgrade. Open the logic tray. So I'm going into my logic tray and I'm going to select the block. Go back into my logic tray to complete my block. You're going to use this if statement to ask if the player's money is higher than the cost of the upgrade. So open the variable tray and drag the item block. And then I'm going to change item to money and change this to greater than. And now I'm going back into my variables tray to select this item block, but I'm going to change it to upgrade cost. Cool. Next, I'm going to add a background color for my button. Again, I'm going to do that, but to the else part. And now I'm going to change that to gray. Awesome. So now the button would be gray until the player has enough money to buy the upgrade. But the button won't do anything yet. In the next tutorial, we're going to make the T change color and get more expensive when you hit the button. So I'm going to go right here. Let's test out to see if our button is going to light up when we have enough money to buy an upgrade. So remember, every time you click on your canvas, it means you're purchasing the bubble tea and the money you have goes up. So let's try to see when we get to 20 if our upgrade is going to give us an alert. Yay, that works. Awesome. So we're going to go back and continue with the next step, the next challenge. Cool. So here is where we're going to upgrade our tea. For this step, you're going to make the upgrade button work, which would change the color of your tea and add bubbles to it to make it look more expensive. Cool. So I'll start by clicking on my next button. And in here, I'm going to drag my block. So before we do anything else, we need to add an if statement to make sure that the button only works if the player has enough money to buy an upgrade. So I'm going into my logic tray to find my if statement. Next, we need to compare how much money the player has with how much it costs. So we need to compare the two variables, and to do that, we're going to open our variable tray and change item to money. Then we're changing the equal sign to greater than. And going back to the variables tray, we're going to select the item block again, but this time we're changing it to upgrade costs. First, we need to take the cost of the upgrade out of the player's money. So I'm going to open my math tray and select this block right here and change from item to money and change this to the equal sign. And next we're going to go back into our variables tray and set item and change that to upgrade cost. My bad. Cool. This seems like a lot of steps, but I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Next we're Next we're going back to our draw tray and we're going to draw a fill color. Go back into our color tray and change it to a random color. To make the drink change, you're going to draw a rectangle on top of the one you've already made. So we're going to replicate this. So basically following the same steps, I'm going to draw a rectangle. So I'm moving my X to 270 and moving my Y to 350. Back to my draw tray, I'm going to draw my rectangle with my width of 180 and my height of 230. Awesome. Now the drink will change color when it's upgraded. Remember, you only see this change if you buy the upgrade. Now let's add some bubbles. Let me go back here. Let's see if we can afford the upgrade. And then oh, there should be some sound when we click, right? Let me set that. Awesome. Nice. And if you see, every time I buy my upgrade, my color changes. So let me refresh that. And let's try that again. Awesome. And every time that I buy an upgrade, it gives me a random color, which is a pleasant surprise if I'm going to pay money for something, right? Okay. So let's move on with the next step of the challenge. So I'm going into my draw tray and I'm going to select a fill color. And back inside of my color tray, I'm going to select a random color just like I did right above, and I'm going to go find a loop that repeats 5 times. Now it says set the position where the bubbles are drawn. I'm going to go into my draw tray and set that position, which happens inside of my loop. And I'm going to my math tray and I'm going to select my random number block between 320 and 400. Let's do the same for the Y position. So I'm going to open my math tray and select my random number from 400 to 550. Awesome. So now I'm going to draw a circle for the bubbles. So I'm going to open my draw tray and I'm going to draw a circle with the radius of 20, and okay, so let's see. We're going to test this out now. Let me turn back the sound. Let me turn on the sound so you guys can hear the sound that we get every time that we sell a T. Okay, so I'm going to do my upgrade now, and now you see, and I have different color T every time, and it should give me a different color of my a different color for my bubbles every time again. Let's try this again to see what color we get next. Okay, I'm going to upgrade, and now we get a different color T, different color bubbles. Awesome. So now let's proceed and go back to the challenge. Now that your drink is tastier, we should charge more money for it. So I'm going to open my math tray and collect my item block and put it outside of my loop, and I'm going to change this from item to cost. And I'm going to go back into my math tray and select this block and put it right here. And back to my variable tray, I'm going to select item and change this to upgrade cost. And I'm going to divide it by 20. See? Okay. The last thing you need to do here is to bump up the cost of the upgrade. So now the player is making more money, they still have to work hard to buy it. So we're going back into our math tray and we're going to set our item. We're going to set our item. Give me a second. We're going to set our item and change it to upgrade cost. And change this to multiply and change 1 to 2. Awesome. So we already tested that out, so we're going to move right on to a recap of what we've done so far. So I'm going to play this video for us to watch and see what's to come next in this challenge.
Hello again. Great job so far. You've put down a lot of blocks. In this video, I'm going to just go through what you've done so far in case there's any bits you're a little bit unsure about or things that you might need refreshing on. So it starts off quite simple. We've got this big chunk here, which is basically just where we've drawn the bubble tea. Now, where it starts to get interesting is in this second chunk we've started. This is where we've set up the variables for keeping track of the cost of the bubble tea and how much money we have in the bank, or how many points the player has scored. Then we set up some text to go on the canvas and moved that into place and gave it some nice colours. And then we added in a loop. Now it's in a loop because the cost of the bubble tea and the amount of money that's in the player's bank is going to change over time. So this code has to run over and over because it's constantly checking to see if either of those variables have changed. So that means when I click, the text down here updates because it's in this loop. Now down here is one of the most important bits of code that we've done so far. It's the mouse on click event. This here is what makes the money in your bank go up when you click. So here we've got our money variable, and what we're doing is we're changing it every time that we click, and we are increasing the number that is stored in the money variable by however much is in the cost variable. So it's basically just adding two numbers together. And then, of course, we play a nice little sound. Okay, so after this, what we did was we added this button here so that we could upgrade our drinks so that you could sell them for more money and get more points. So then we added in this chunk of code here. We started off by setting the variable of how much the upgrade will initially cost us, which I set to $20, and then we moved the button into a nice place. Just like the chunk of code we did before, this bit also needs to be inside of a loop because the amount that the upgrade costs changes over time. Every time you buy it, it gets more expensive. This is where we added in our logic by adding an if statement. The reason we added this is because we wanted the button to change colour if the player had enough money to buy the upgrade. So in this if statement, we ask a question. Is the variable of money higher than the variable of the upgrade cost? Basically, do we have more money than the upgrade costs? And if we do, then we turn the background orange of the button. And if we don't, else we turn it grey, like it is now. So if I click a little bit more, it turns orange because the money in our bank is higher than the cost of the upgrade. We use this same bit of logic when the player presses the button as well. When they click it, we also ask, does the player have enough money to actually buy the upgrade? And if they do, we set off all of this code. So let's take a look at what's inside of here. So if the player has enough money to buy the upgrade, the first thing that happens is that we take the cost of the upgrade away from their money. So basically, they've bought it. And then we do the fun stuff. We change the colour of the tea and we add some bubbles to it using this repeat 5 times. Now here's the more complicated bit. Because the player has bought this upgrade and now they're selling nicer, fancier tea, the cost of the bubble tea should go up so that it costs more to buy. So what we've done is we've taken our cost variable and we've added to it. So we increase the cost of the bubble tea by however much the upgrade cost the user, but because that would be a little bit too much, we've divided it by 20, so it only gets a little bit more expensive, but it depends on what upgrade they've bought. Say if we'd already bought quite a few upgrades and the user had spent a lot of money on that upgrade, the price of the tea will go up a little bit more. And then finally, we make the cost of the upgrade a little bit more expensive. We times it by 2. Because now that the player is earning more money every time that they sell a tea, we've got to make it a little bit more difficult for them to buy the next upgrade. So next you're going to be making another very cool upgrade for your shop. You're going to be adding an auto clicker. When a player buys the auto clicker, instead of having to click all of the time, the game will click for them and they'll gain points automatically.
So while I would like us to continue with the rest of the game, it looks like we've run out of time for today. So what we're going to do is to start our activity next week right from this part. I can go ahead and start, but this might be the last challenge we're able to complete. We probably wouldn't be able to finish the game. So I'm talking too much. I'm just going to go ahead and just get us started to see how far we can go before we run out of time. Okay. So in this part, you're going to set up a second button that would allow the user by an auto clicker, which would take away the hard work of clicking yourself. Next. First, you're going to add another when the app starts. Okay. I'm going to try to breeze through all of this and go into my variable tray. Okay. And I'm going to clicker cost. Next, I'm going into my variable tray and I'm going to set this to 0 and change the number from 0 to 500. Next, add the button parts. Using the add parts button, I'm going to add my button, and inside of my button tray, I'm going to select the block that lets my button show. And I'm going to move my button to the X position of 620 and my Y position of 500. Okay, because the cost of the auto clicker would change over time, you need to add a loop. So I'm going into my control tray to get my loop, and I'm going to change from seconds to milliseconds. And inside of my button 2 tray, I'm going to select a label. And now I'm going inside of my variable tray to select this create text with block. And now I'm back inside of my variable tray to create my text, and I'm going to change the name to auto clicker. And of course, give it a $1 value. Just ignore that. Cool. Just give me space. Cool. Okay. So next, I'm going to add a clicker cost variable to the second part of my button. From my variable tray, I'm going to select the item and change that to clicker cost. Just like the other button, you're going to add an if statement that makes the button light up when the player has enough money to buy it. So now I'm going inside of my tray, and I'm going to go inside of my logic tray and complete my if statement. Inside of my variable tray, I'm going to select my money and change this to greater than. And back to my variable tray, I'm going to select the item block and change that to clicker cost. So back to my button 2 tray, I'm going to select the background color to change to orange, and when I don't have money for it, we're going to change that to gray. It's the same steps as we did before. And now we are able to select our auto clicker. So this is a good stopping point for today. When we come back together after the Thanksgiving break, we're going to proceed from here. But thank you guys for joining me today. If you have any other questions, send me an email at hello@dospace.org. My name is Kafaya. It's been awesome working with you guys today. I hope to see you next time. Bye.